in Acts chapter 1. So I'm going to bring my sheet from my workbook up. And so Acts chapter 1, I kind of divide Acts chapter 1 in my mind in three different parts. The first beginning part of Acts chapter 1 is Luke recounting the first letter that he written to the Laphius, and where he talked about what Yeshua did, what he taught, all the way to the end with his ascension. The second part of Acts is the disciples speaking to him. They gathered. They were even begin to ask questions just before he ascended. But the question is more about the kingdom of Israel versus the kingdom of heaven. And this is why Yeshua said all of that is put in the Father's hand. Because at this point, the disciples don't fully understand the purpose. They fully don't understand the kingdom. And we will get into that in chapter 2 today. So the disciples, the 11 or who was with him, returned back to the Jerusalem, to the rented place from the upper room that was rented when Yeshua was going to have Passover meal with them. Of course, he did not have the opportunity to have Passover meal with him because he was captured at that moment, and he actually became our Passover lamb for Passover. And then we have at the end of like midway, maybe 11 or 12. This is where my application come from. So they went from the 11 returning to the upper room to the temple court where there's 120 believers. Somehow, because we're reading it, we're missing that timeline of the way it is written. So if you have a letter without the chapters, without the verses, which is important for us to have, this is how we learning together. We can refer to them. This is the purpose of that. But we're missing that timeline. We're missing that timeline because it's difficult to understand without the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Without that foundation, it becomes more difficult to understand how to rightly divide the word of truth and what has actually been said. I do want to take a look at my last keynote. The chosen disciples begin to cast lot among the believers. At this time, they're in the temple court, the house. They're in the temple court. And so they're casting lots on to figure out who is going to take Judas' place. This is also important because casting lots is nothing new. We see Aaron, who is the high priest, casting lots when it comes between figuring out which goat, because there's two goats you have to identify when it comes to the Day of Atonement. Is it going to be the scapegoat, or is it going to be the goat that we offer to Jehovah? Remember, those are goats, not lambs, that he offers on the Day of Atonement. We have Joshua using lots too when it comes to dividing the 9.5 tribes of the 9.5 tribe of Manasseh into their locations. And of course, you will find many more scriptures of the people casting lots. Now, Proverbs 16, verse 33, it says, the lot is cast into the lap, but every decision is from Jehovah. So casting lot is nothing that they would not do. It's nothing they're going to be ashamed of doing, because this is something that's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. So we can't judge them casting lots. That's just a part of their journey so far. They're at the beginning of their ministry, and they will learn more, because we do know that Yeshua never cast any lots. So they're at the beginning. So I choose not to judge them casting lots, because they were leaning more towards this tradition they're being under. And they will grow, and we will see more effectiveness with their ministry as they're leading with the Holy Spirit. Also, I want to come to you guys and remind you to remove from your mind, every time you hear disciples, the 12. because we do know that there were hundreds of disciples of Yeshua. And Paul written about that. This is the reason why you consider the whole word. In 1 Corinthians 15 and 16, there was 500 disciples that Yeshua presented himself to prior to ascending. So there is a lot more disciples that was present, and that include men and women. So I had no word study. I have a list of cross-reference that you can most definitely dive into in your own timing. And my questions: did the disciple believe Yeshua? Did the disciples understand their mission? There is so much that the disciples are going to grow and learn as they continue on, just like all of us who walk this journey. We will begin at the beginning and we will grow as we allow the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us in those different directions.